objectives. And then we started off with day one. And we began with the probing question: what did you eat in breakfast? And as I told last time, that instead of directly introducing the topic, right, we have got to ask them questions and elicit answers to them, and slowly but surely lead the class towards the introduction of the topic. And through the responses that they give, right, we then lead them towards the name of the chapter. Then we continue on day one with our sequence of probing questions and expected responses. And then we continue with probing questions further, and the cycle goes on. And the next question that we can ask them is, what else do we get from trees? The students would say apples and mangoes and whatever else they would say. Then we move on to ask them, what else do we get from trees? What is there in your bags? Maybe you can ask them, what is there in your compass boxes, right? They will respond that we have pencils, we have erasers, we have sharpeners. So then you can ask them, do you know what is an eraser made of? Then the children will respond, it is rubber. And then you can tell them, where do you get rubber from? Right? You get rubber from trees. Then what is the pencil made of? Right? Inside there is graphite, but outside, what is the pencil made of? It is made of wood. From where do you get the wood? You get the wood from the trees. Then you can ask them, where do you keep your clothes or books at home? Maybe they will tell you the shelf or the cupboard, right? Wardrobe. So what is that shelf or the wardrobe or the table made of? Right? And the children will respond, it is made of wood, it's made of plywood or wood. Right? So from where do we get the wood? For making pencils and for making furniture. We get the wood from the trees. Right? Similarly, erasers. Where do you get the rubber for erasers? Right? We get it from the trees. Right? So this is the approach. Right? You could have directly said, fatwa de sakte hai, कि bhai, listen to this. Children, we get rubber from trees. Point number one. Point number two, we get wood from trees. Right? We get all of these things we get from trees, full stop. No, this is not the way. This is not the approach. This should not be the approach. The approach should be more interactive. Don't give fatwa like a newsreader, right? That you just announce or declare the topic or the content in the textbook to the students. No, have an interaction. It shouldn't be a one-way traffic. It shouldn't be a monologue. It should be a dialogue, right? Ask them about what is there in your compass box, right? Make them, you take them on a journey from the bag to the compass box, to the pencil, to the eraser, to the tree. You ultimately want to reach the tree, the plant, from where you get those things. But take them on a journey. Don't directly deliver them the content, right? Ask them questions. And why do you ask them about compass box? Right? Why do you ask them about clothes, about books? It is something that they can relate to. It is something that they can connect with. Right? Everybody has compass boxes in the class. Everybody wears clothes. Everybody uses books. Right? You are talking about something that they can relate to. Right? We many a times in the educational circles, we listen to this idea that we must connect our topic with something that the students can relate to. This is important. And we listen to this many a times in educational lectures, that we must relate with something that the students can easily connect with, easily relatable topic. That is the reason why we used pencil and eraser and books and clothes, something that each student can understand easily. This is something that we saw in the prophetic methodology as well, when we were doing prophetic techniques, how the Prophet ﷺ used to relate with dates, he used to relate with camel, he used to relate with desert, something that the desert dwellers could easily connect with, right? So this is something that is important to do. Similarly, you can ask them, how many of you have books? Everybody will raise their hands, yes. Now, is how many you have books, how many of you have books, is it written in the textbook? Such a question? Obviously not, right? But this is the method of interaction, right? And I'm not saying that each of these questions will be noted down in the lesson plan. That's not feasible, right? As I said, that what we will discuss is the actual implementation of the lesson plan, right? And then at the end, I will give you a small short synopsis of how the actual lesson plan could be written. But I'm going in detail so that you understand how the implementation works, right? So everybody raises their hands that, okay, we have books. Okay, from where, do you have paper in the books? Everybody says yes. Why are you asking these silly questions, supposedly silly questions? Obviously, there is paper in the books. It is to keep them connected, right? It is to make them interact with you, right? We always say, right, that it should be an interactive class. How are you going to make it interactive? By declaring that we get the paper in the books we get from trees, full stop. No. That's not the way. Not by giving declarations, right? Interact. How many of you have books, right? It's not mentioned in the textbook, this question, but you've got to interact with them, right? Even the one who is not paying attention will come back into your classroom when you ask them such a question, that how many of you have books, right? And from where you get the paper from. By now, the students have realized that whenever such a question is posed, from where you get it, you get it from the trees, from the plants. So you have introduced this question, and then you will get an expected response that you get the paper from the bark of the tree, from the book, from the tree. So we have come to this point where we have introduced to them that the source of all of these resources, whether it be fruits, whether it be vegetables, whether it be paper, whether it be wood, whether it be rubber, all of this is procured from the plants, the crops or the trees. So now this is the part that we have introduced in their minds. Now we move on. The use and benefits of plants and how to take care of them. We will move on with that part of the chapter. Now we have to introduce, we say Islamization of knowledge, Islamization of content, Islamization of education. We talk about these issues. Let's bring in that aspect as well. Ask them who made the trees, right? Then we have got to introduce this thing, who made the trees. So before we get to that, who made the trees, we can ask them this question, that how many of you have brought breakfast in your tiffin? Maybe poha, maybe pongal, maybe idli, whatever. They will say, our mother has made it. Right? Then you ask them, who has stitched your clothes? Who has made your clothes? They'll say, the tailor has made it. Right? Who has made the furniture? The students will respond, carpenter has made it. So now you are slowly moving towards recognition of the creative power of God. You're moving towards the magnificence of His creativity, Allah's creativity. But you're not directly declaring to them that the trees are made by God, full stop. No, not that way. You are slowly but surely taking them on a journey and ensuring that the plane lands smoothly. You know, when the plane lands, with a jerk, what happens? And many of you must have traveled on a plane. But when the plane lands smoothly, it's a good journey. So similarly, do not declare, let the plane of your chapter land smoothly on the runway. Take it in a natural manner, right? So again, you're relating the furniture, you're relating the idli and the pongal with your mother, and who has made this, who has made the clothes, who's made by the tailor. So you're connecting, relating it with what they can connect with, relate to. And then they realize that, and then you make them realize that everything is made by someone. The idli is made by your mother. The furniture is made by the carpenter. The clothes are made by the tailor. So, who has made the trees? Who make the trees? Does your mother or the father make the tree? Or does the tailor make your tree? Make the tree? No. So who makes the tree? The tree is created by Allah. It's the farmer who sows the seed, but the farmer just sows the seed and waters the plant. But who actually grows the tree? It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who grows the tree. Allah says in the Quran that He created all the things, the sun, the moon, the mountains, the trees, the animals. This is how you introduce. And even regarding the sun and the moon, you can talk, you can interact with them. Who created the sun? Did your mother make the sun? Who created the moon? Did the tailor create the moon? No. Who created it? So now, by now, the children have understood the concept. They will themselves respond that Allah has created the sun, the moon, the mountains, the trees, animals. What you're doing, you're bringing in the concept of creation in the minds of the students, right? That now the students, you're inculcating that spirit in the students, in that sense, in the students to look at the world and imagine that this is the creation of my Allah. When the student looks at the mountains, the rivers, the trees, the birds, right? Everything that this child is looking at, he is now remembering Allah. Right? That it is all created by my Lord, by Allah. All of these things continuously praise Allah in their own language, which we cannot understand. Right? We can introduce this concept, zikr of Allah. All of these things, the leaves on the trees, the fruits on the trees, the mountains and the rivers, everything is praising Allah. So now we can move on. How do we praise Allah and worship Allah? How do we do ibadat of Allah? Now you're bringing in the concept of Islamization. This will not be there in the textbook because we are living in a secular country. We can't expect the Islamization aspect in the textbook. This, as a teacher, we have got to bring in, right? So then students will say we do zikr, we offer namaz, or you can discuss with them, right? And what else you do to do ibadat of Allah? By the obedience of His commands. Then you can interact with them, right? This is all the process of Islamization. This is all the process of value education. This is the process of value inculcation, right? We can ask them, what are some of the things that Allah wants us to do, right? And then we can discuss. The students will tell you that Allah wants us to be good, to be truthful, to take care of others, to be helpful, to offer salah, to do zikr, whatever. And then we can ask them, what are some of the things that Allah doesn't want us to do? And they will say, do not lie, do not hurt others, do not hurt the classmates, whatever. You can have this kind of small discussion, mini discussion, right? So then you can conclude that part by saying, similarly, every tree and every part of the tree worships Allah, does the ibadah of Allah, does the zikr of Allah. But how they do it, we don't understand. Right? So what are you doing here is, you're bringing in the concept of Allah. bringing in the concept of Allah is the creator, bringing in the concept of zikr and ibadah of Allah, bringing in the concept of being obedient to the commandments of Allah. We are bringing in the concept of how not to, just a moment. Right. So you're bringing all of these concepts to the fore. This is Islamization of content. This is what we always have close to our hearts. Now we continue on with the chapter. We ask them, we have different parts of our body. Do you know them? The different parts of our body. And they will point out the ear, the nose, the eyes, the cheek, the hands, the legs, whatever. The children will tell you that, right? And just to bring in the fun element, you can say, you can touch the nose and say, is this your ear? In lower standard, obviously you've got to remember the humor that you do or the connection that you establish with students cannot be at the same level in different standards. When you're in 9th standard, the way you bring in humor will be different, distinctly different. In 2nd standard, it will be distinctly different. This we have to understand. Otherwise, if you do these antics in 9th standard, you'll end up becoming less of a teacher and more of a joker. And so you've got to have that sense that in different standards, different kinds of interaction at a different level, you have to interact with them. This is important to understand. So, and even in the earlier thing that I talked about, we saw how we landed on Allah and His creation. And we saw how we did the interaction slowly, but surely, gradually, developing that discussion in the classroom. This is what they say when we talk about ownership of learning. You must have heard of this term. It's very commonly used in the educational circles. Ownership of learning. So how do you develop ownership of learning? This is how you do it. By interacting with them, by asking them questions, eliciting responses, and then on the basis of those responses, ask them further questions, and slowly but surely you're taking them to that place where you want them to go in terms of that chapter. Right? Developing, the students are learning the concepts without actually realizing they are learning it. There is just an interaction that is happening, and they are learning slowly but surely. They are learning the concepts, right? So when we ask them about the different parts of the body, they respond, what are the different parts of the body? And you tell them that similarly, the way you have different parts of your body, plants also, trees also have different parts, right? So there are different parts of a tree. How many of you can identify the different parts of the tree? Maybe some of the students can respond. And there is a risk. Do not give a fatwa again that the tree has leaf, fruit, branch, stem, roots. Okay, repeat after me. No, that's not the way. That's not the style. Don't be a news reader, right? Just reading with the content. Interact with your students, right? Parts of your body is not mentioned in the chapter on the plants in the textbook. You're just introducing the concept that the way you have different parts of your body, the trees also have different parts, right? And when I said that you hold your nose and say, is this, what is this? This is an ear? No. Then they will say, this is the nose. And what is this? Is this are these your eyes? No, these are your ears. So what are you doing is that you're making them remain awake. You're connecting with them. You're ensuring that they are alive. in the classroom, right? This is important. This is not something that's written in the textbook. It's a natural process which I am describing to you, right? So now you've got to introduce the different types of plant kingdom. Like you have crops, you have big trees, you have small trees, you have shrubs, right? Small shrubs, you have big trees like an oak tree. Like, so you're asking about, you have got to introduce about the different types of trees. So how are you going to introduce that? One way is, as I just said, as I've been saying today, that one way is just say there are different types of trees, crops and shrubs and big trees and plants, whatever. Full stop. No, again, that's not the way. What are you going to do? Introduce to them about people which they can relate to, right? Maybe there is a boy by the name Asif, who is a very large boy, very big sized boy. And then maybe there is another boy by the name Akbar, who might be small. So you say there are different types of people, right? If the Asif is a big boy, right, is the biggest boy, tallest boy in the classroom, say the way there are different types and sizes of people, there are different types and sizes of plants. So say for an instance, Asif is a very small boy. Now Asif is the big one. It's not the small one. But you'll say Asif is a very small boy. Immediately the students will respond, no, Asif is not big. He's not small, teacher. He's a very big boy. Right, very good. Asif is a big boy. And now again, the intonations, right? So what you're going, Asif is a big boy. So that when you're saying big, your sound should sound big boy. Now, these are simple things, simple psychological tricks of connecting with your students. You've got to remember that, right? You've got to understand that. You cannot teach in the same monotonous tone. You've got to vary your tone, right? This is another thing when we do, maybe some other time when we do the techniques of classroom management, we'll cover these techniques maybe in the next topic after this topic gets over, inshallah. Right? Intonations are very important, right? So how you connect with your students when you say big boy, you should sound big, right? Similarly, Akbar is a small boy. When you say small, that it should sound small, right? He's a short boy. Right? So the way we have Asif being a big boy, we have an oak tree which is a big tree, right? Like Asif is a small boy, we have small shrubs. So look at the intonations, look at the modulation of voice, right? I wish I was doing this in an interactive way in the class, in an actual physical workshop with you, but it becomes much more effective when this topic is dealt with in a physical workshop. But something is better than nothing. So we are doing it online. Anyway, so this is how you introduce the different types of plants and crops and trees, right? So step by step, gradually you do it, right? So similarly, with regards to uses of plants, right? You get flowers from the plants, right? You get flowers. Now you can how do you introduce flowers? That you get flowers from the plants. One way again is to give a fatwa or like a give a declaration like a newsreader. You get flowers from the plants. Full stop. Again, no, that's not the way. You've got to introduce the concept of fragrance. Now, it's unfortunately because of the lack of time and because of the limitation of the medium of a Zoom meet. I am unable to ask you questions, right? The right process would be to actually ask you. The way I do this topic in a physical workshop is I do not say, here I am just saying, I just put the questions to you people and the participants respond. Unfortunately, in this format, it becomes difficult because then I've got to wait by the time you write it down in the classroom. All right. So this is how you've got to do, right? and you've got to try to interact with them about fragrance, how you're going to introduce fragrance, right? That good smell and bad smell, right? Maybe in the on the Friday when you go, you apply fragrance, you apply itr, you get good smell. When you pass by through a urinal or a toilet, you get bad smell, right? What are the other things that you get good smell from? And the students will themselves tell you from itr, from perfume. Some of the students might say from flowers. So what you did, you landed on flowers in a different way. You didn't declare about flowers, right? So they will say flowers. Very good, brilliant. Where do you get flowers from? What are the various kinds of flowers? Rose and sunflower and lily and so on and so forth. So you get flowers from the plants, right? Now, when you're interacting, you'll say in between, you get flowers in your compass box. Is it? Right? Why you're saying that? Is it written in the textbook? Obviously not. This is the way you interact. This is the way you teach. You're not newsreaders, you're teachers, right? So this is how you teach. And then they'll say, they laugh. No, we don't get it in our compass box. So where do you get flowers, right? In a flower pot or on a tree, right? So now you introduce the concept that you get flowers from the trees, right? So this is how we have got to move ahead. Somebody asked in the chat box, how do you execute mathematical concepts? Yes, there are limitations with regards to teaching mathematical concepts. Abstract concepts also can be taught. When it comes to English language or languages, yes, you can do all of these things. In science and geography, you can do all of these things, right? In civics, in history, you can do these things. But in mathematics, it is a touch difficult. It is a touch difficult because it is by its very nature dry. But still, you can do a lot of things in mathematics. You can interact in mathematics as well. I've already run out of time at 7:32. I'll take up this. It's a very important issue that has been raised. How do you execute these things in mathematics? I'll take this up in the next session. Please do remind me, Sister Fatima. Next session, we'll take it up, inshallah. Jazakumullahu khair. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
Alhamdulillah, mashallah, Janab Ghufraan sahib. Wonderful session, inspiring. Really, it is very useful and regenerating our teachers. And your talk on plants also very, very helpful. For example, and then 3 points as the Surah Al Imran, ayat number 191, that Rabbana ma khalaqta hadha batila. Allah has not created anything in vain. Everything, there is a purpose behind it. And finally, your correlation of the subject with this to religious, secular to with the religious, with the topic which I have spoken just now. MashaAllah, it is wonderful. And inshallah, we will meet you in the next session. Tomorrow also we are having Tamil speaker session. My dear teachers, please take some efforts to kindly attend this. Inshallah, very, very helpful to you in future. May I conclude? Let me conclude, inshallah. Jazakallahu khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Subhanallah, bihamdi, subhanakallah, bihamdika. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.